The following is a special presentation of the Minty Organization for the Performing Arts.
And good evening and welcome to another installment of Front Row Conversations. You know, it's most of our students' dreams to go from Mintys to Broadway and the Tonys. But for my next guest, she did it in the reverse order. She had her day on the Tony stage, only later to win the Minty for Outstanding Supporting Actress. I am thrilled to welcome my next guest, a seasoned Broadway actress and a dear friend of the Mintys, Ms. Analise Scarpaci joins us. Hello, Analise. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. You know, it's March, I think.
It is.
Yeah,
So
March.
we're back to March.
It's March. Here we are, 1 year later, and we're still standing. So that's a start.
Thank God for that. So you have a lot of credits to your name, but I want to start at the beginning because I've been doing shows with you for, I think, most of your life, I would say. So why don't you tell the folks about you growing up, the shows that you were involved in, and then we'll get to your Broadway aspirations.
Yeah. So when I guess my parents discovered that I had a musical talent when I was very, very young, about before I was one. And they played Shirley Temple videos for me all the time, and I knew every word and every step. So they put me in ballet, and I was a very, very trained ballet dancer from when I was 2. And one day I just decided I wanted to take acting classes because it would make my dancing better. And my parents signed me up for the Actors Workshop, which is where I met you. And I performed in my first musical, The Wizard of Oz. And you were the wizard, and I was a munchkin. And I had a line, and I don't remember it, but I remember I had like a sunflower pot on my head. That's all I remember about that show. And my hair was like in curlers. It was the first time I ever had
a line in your first show. That's pretty good, though.
I did. I had a line. I remember that. And I'm trying to think. I did a bunch of other shows in between. Obviously, I was Sally and Charlie Brown and Maisie and Seussical. And I wore a really bright red wig for Seussical, and for Dear Edwina, I was Susie. And I had a solo. That was my first solo I ever had in the show. And then after that, when I was 10 years old, I decided to go see Billy Elliot on Broadway. And I still wanted to be a ballet dancer. Like, that was really my calling in life at the time. And when I saw Billy Elliot, I didn't realize how a bunch of kids my age could be in a show at that caliber and that strength. And it was just unbelievable. And I will never forget the feeling that I had, that it's kind of like this was like what I was meant to do. And I need to be a part of that, and I need to be up on that stage. And I turned to my parents and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to do this, and I don't want to do anything else for the rest of my life. And they were like, okay, great. And we found a manager in the playbill.
Your parents, I think they said something besides that, but we'll go with that for
yeah, true. That you're right. They were like, okay, like, I don't know. They were like, all right, great, cool, let's do it, whatever. And they were supporting me the entire way. We found a manager in the playbill for Billy Elliot, and we sent my headshot and my resume that I made at the Actors Workshop, like little handwritten, and then typed it out and snail mailed it off. And they called and she signed me. I went for a meeting and she signed me, and the rest was pretty much history.
So before we get to your professional credits, you were doing high school shows before you were even in high school.
Yes.
I believe at Notre Dame, where you went for elementary school, and then with Farrell.
Yes, I did. Wow. I did. When I was in the 4th grade, I was Molly and Annie. And then the year after that, they did Babes in Arms. I did that at Notre Dame. I think the same year I was also in the Farrell shows, and I did The Wiz, and I was a Munchkin. And then the year after that, they did Anything Goes, and I was in that. And it's so funny because I talk about this a lot, how when I think about like doing high school shows, like I was like, when I got to high school, I was like, oh, I'm a seasoned pro with these. I love doing these because I always thought I was the coolest person ever because I was hanging out with everyone who was older than me. And it's cool because I got to have that experience at such a young age, and I got a sense of what it was like and what it would be like for me once I got into high school. And it really was an amazing thing, especially at Farrell, because my senior year I did the Farrell show and I was in She Loves Me, and they did that thing at the end with the quacks, and I was like, I did this when I was 11. It's such a full circle moment. It was so cool.
And we have had quite we should do a reunion of that Annie, by the way. We had Joe O'Malley on last week, and I had forgotten that he was in that until he mentioned it.
Wait, he was in that.
He was FDR.
Right.
And I think a few of the other bit parts. But let me tell you, that was pre-Minties because I was in it. But that would have taken home a few.
Oh, for sure.
So myself.
Oh, and I forgot to say, I was in Seussical at Notre Dame when I was in 7th grade. I was JoJo.
Was that what year was that? Oh, so that was in the Minties.
That was in the Minties, yeah.
That was their first year in the Minties.
Mm-hmm.
They did that.
Yeah.
Oh, don't recall you in that one. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I forgot about it for a second, and I remembered.
So now, like I said, by the time you went to high school, you had already amassed a number of professional credits. So now let's switch back. You have an agent, and what is your first professional gig?
My first professional gig was Godspell Cast of 2032, and it was a press event for the 2012 revival of Godspell, and went on an open call. My voice teacher had emailed all of her clients saying Godspell's having a big open call for kids, and I wasn't going to go at first, but then I decided, okay, why not? What do I have to lose? And I went, and it was funny because at that time I was doing Sound of Music at In the Wings, and they had me going in for callbacks the day of the show, and I didn't think that I was going to be that long at the audition. And do you remember that we had to stall the show because I was in Manhattan at the callback?
Vaguely, now that you mentioned it, yes.
And I was 12, and I was Marta, and Dalta was doing my hair, and I was supposed to have my hair in French braids, but we had to do them in regular braids because there was just no time to do it because we had to stall the show. But I ended up getting the job, and it was great. And it was 1 week of rehearsals, and I really got that full experience of being what it was like to be on Broadway. And I went to school during the day and went to rehearsal at night, and it was so amazing. And I remember walking onto that stage that night. It was a one night only performance, and the energy, and I knew that it was just like, this is, if I don't get anything else in my life, I know that I had this moment, and that's all I need to know, because I know what it's like now, and that's it. Like, nothing else is going to live up to this moment. It was the first time, and it was the most memorable for me.
What did it feel like? And if this is what you just meant, I apologize for being redundant, but when you first saw the audience out there, or felt the audience reaction with you on the stage?
It was insane because it was, I mean, our show was in the round. So we were at Circle in the Square. And I feel like that had a greater impact, especially since I could see every face. I remember seeing my best friend. She was in the audience. She was in the second row with her dad. And I remember seeing different faces of different people. I remember seeing my parents. I remember seeing everyone who has watched me grow since I was little and since I was born. And they knew how much I loved to do this, and they knew how much it meant to me. It was amazing. It really was.
And it was the first of many great opportunities for you.
It was.
So that 2012, now we get into 2013, I believe.
The fall of 2012.
Oh, the fall of 2012 comes
A Christmas Story. And that was a magical experience. I talk about this all the time, but there's nothing like your Broadway debut. It will always just have a special place in your heart. And that's what A Christmas Story was. And I created, and I had the best friends. I still talk to them every single day. My best friend, Jack, who played Scott Farkas in A Christmas Story, came with me to my senior prom. He met everybody on Staten Island. He was at the Hilton. He was at the Hilton in 2017. It was just unbelievable. I learned so much, and I loved going to school during that time because we were going to school on set. And we went for, I want to say 4 to 5 hours a week during the day before the show. And then we'd go home for dinner and then we'd come back. But those memories that I have from us in school, I mean, we were 16 kids and we had the entire floor, the entire 5th floor of the Lunt-Fontanne to ourselves. So imagine just 15 kids between the ages of 8 and 13 just running around doing whatever, and we're all on Broadway. It was so weird. It's just so weird, but it was so much fun, and I learned so much from everybody.
And that was the holiday, that was the limited engagement run.
It was 2 months, and it was the best 2 months of my life.
Can you describe that opening night?
It was crazy. There's actually a video of it on, they took like a video, like a recap of the night. And I was so giddy. And I remember just smiling the entire time. And I remember coming home, my face was killing me because I was so happy. And it was just this big dream. Everything had led up to this night, and screaming. And the thought that Bernadette Peters watched me perform makes me, like, I just can't even fathom it. It's just, that didn't happen. And Megan Hilty was also there, and Corey Cott, and like all these insane people saw me perform. It's weird. And I never thought that that was ever going to happen. And it was crazy just seeing all these celebrities at the party. And it was at a bowling alley, so we were able to bowl, and I bowled with Steven Schwartz, and that's odd.
Is he a good bowler, do you recall?
It was pretty good.
Well, so for many people, that would be your career milestone. That would be the precipice of your success. But for you, and honestly, it was just beginning with the Christmas Story. So you do that limited engagement, and then you get, again, for many, what would be the opportunity of a lifetime with your next show.
Yeah. And even Christmas Story, I performed on the Tonys, and that was on the Sunday. And 3 days later, I went in for my final callback for Matilda, and I got the job. I was insanely proud of myself because for me, this was really the full circle moment, because Billy Elliot was the first show that I knew that I wanted to do this, and it had the same choreography team. So for me, and the casting director was the same, and it was a show coming from the UK, and I loved West End shows. So it was like, this was it. I was like, this is it. You did it. You didn't book Billy Elliot, but it's okay because you got Matilda, and this is what you wanted. You always wanted to work with Peter Darling, and now you get to. And I was so proud because for me, I was a dancer, so I wanted to be a dance captain in training, and I got to learn so much because I was a swing. And for anyone who doesn't know what a swing is someone who knows a bunch of different tracks within the ensemble. And we get to go on either, I had a set time, so I was scheduled to go on twice per week, once for each of my tracks. And just so that the main cast can have a night off and then they can get a rest. But usually it's when they are sick or need a personal day or on vacation. So the swing just goes in, and the swing always has to be prepared no matter what. So it was great for me because I got to really get that experience of always being on my toes and always learning and always just trying to be that dance captain that I've always wanted to be. So it was great.
And how long did you play in Matilda for?
I was in Matilda for 18 months. So for my entire freshman year and half of my sophomore year. And then I did the tour when I was 16 for 5 weeks.
And so you actually presented at the Mintys
I did.
before even performing or being nominated for one. So that is
Yeah.
a feat in and of itself that not many people get, but you presented in 2014
Yes.
along with one of your co-stars from Matilda.
Yes. And she was born on Staten Island. So it was crazy. And she was born on Staten Island and then moved with her family to Albany. And it was so funny because when we had met, she was like, "Oh my gosh, we have family." And she lived on Staten Island while she was here the entire time that she did the show. And it was so
Probably
much fun.
knew everybody that we know because that's how Staten Island works.
Exactly.
So now finally you're in high school, and makes you now to be part of high school shows while you're in high school. So you started your high school career at Villa, again playing very memorable roles in a number of their productions. So why don't you take us through some of your high school favorite roles?
Yes. So when I was a sophomore, I was Vivian in Legally Blonde, which I laugh at myself because I was really short and Vivian's supposed to be super tall, but it worked. That was so much fun. And then the fall of my junior year, I was Maisie in Seussical. And it was great because I got to revisit Maisie, and I played Maisie when I was 11. So I got to revisit and understand actually what was going on in the play.
I would hope you'd have a better understanding. Yes.
Rather than, cute little girl with feathers and shaking her booty. But it was great. I love to like revisit roles that I've played. Like I'd love to revisit every single role that I've done, and in my lifetime I will hopefully get to do that, or even just study it. It's so cool, just different ages and how you think, and what you understand. But after Seussical, then I did the tour for Matilda when I was a junior. So my second semester, I didn't perform in a high school show. And then my senior year, then I transferred to Notre Dame, and I was in Jesus Christ Superstar. And that's when I won the Minty for Mary Magdalene.
And honestly, to say unbiased, but one of the absolutely, I mean, you're on Broadway, so obviously you're going to be fantastic, but really one of the great performances, and that we were so happy to be able that you were able to relive that on the Minty stage.
Thank you. It was
that year.
Mary was definitely, and Jesus Christ Superstar as a whole was something that I really needed, especially at that time in my life. I was going through a rough time mentally, and just where I was going in life, and normal teenage thoughts, and especially before you go to college. So it was definitely what I needed. And Mrs. Rella was amazing, and I wasn't going to audition. And she said to me, she's known me since I was in the 7th grade because she choreographed Seussical at Notre Dame when I was in it. And she said to me, "I want you to have the best senior year you can." And she told me that I had to audition. She said, "You have to." She said, "I'm not going to force you, but you have to audition because I want your senior year to be the best that it could possibly be." And she was right. And I auditioned. And to this day, I always say that Mary is my favorite role that I've ever played. And it probably will always be my favorite role that I've ever played because I needed her. And at that time, I needed her in my life. And I loved being in that show, and that whole cast was just amazing. And it was a magical experience. I loved it.
And I think that goes to show you the power of theater, that even more so, not just for the audience, but for the actors, finding for themselves what they need to in the roles and to help cope with various trials and issues that they're facing in life.
Yeah, for sure. That show saved me. It really did.
And then you finished out, as you said, doing She Loves Me at Monsignor Farrell later that spring. And then came the 2017 Mintys, which, again, in my unbiased opinion, I put up there with one of the best ceremonies that we've ever had. All the schools were fantastic that year. So if you had to look back and give your favorite Minty memory, what might that be?
I think my favorite Minty memory is definitely getting to meet other people from other schools. Like I said, I was going through a time of discovery before my senior year. And my junior year, when I did Seussical, I was able to meet, it was like the first year that I felt like in high school because I was in shows my sophomore and my freshman year. So junior year Minties, I was really, really excited to get to meet other people from other schools. And there's a thing that you say when we have our first meeting with all of the nominees. And
a lot of things.
there are a lot of things that you say, but you did say that like you wanted us to meet other people from other schools. Like, don't stay near people your schools because you want us to get along and you want us to meet everybody. So that's exactly what I did. And I hung out with a lot of the people who went to Notre Dame. And when I did decide later that summer to transfer schools, I thought back to the Mintys. And I was like, well, I think I'm going to be okay at Notre Dame because they're really great people and they seem like a really great community for me to really have a good senior year. And I did. So I have the Minties to thank for keeping, I mean, you know, anxiety did in, but you know, I have the Minties to thank for like really encouraging that community was the right one for me.
Well, we actually have a clip now of your Minties and Mary Magdalene, and let's watch a bit of that and a little bit of your acceptance speech from that win.
I don't know how to love him, what to do, how to move him. I've been changed, yes, really changed. In these past few days, when I've seen myself, I seem like someone else. Should I put him down? Should I scream and shout? Should I speak of love, let my feelings out? I never thought I'd come to this.
And the Minty goes to Analise
Mom, Dad, and my entire family, I love you all so much. Thank you for always supporting me and for always having my back. I love you all. To my cast and crew, I love you all endlessly. Thank you, thank you, thank you for making this the best year ever. I love you all. And I just want to let everyone know that everybody has a path in their life. And we don't know what that path will be, and I never thought that I'd be where I am. And just know that anything's possible, and just go with the flow, and just know that God has the right path for you. Thank you so much.
You know, I was a little worried because at first I thought you had mentioned before that sharing the stage with Nick Garrity would be your best Minty moment ever. But I'm glad you went with something a little more sentimental.
I agree. I mean, that's definitely my second favorite. I mean, who else gets to say that they got to kiss Nick Garrity on the Minty stage? I mean, I don't think anyone else. I mean, I guess a lot of other people because they were, you know, he's Nick Garrity.
Yes, he is, and he does have a nice list of credits to his name. So you graduate high school, you go to Pace University, and then again you get the job of a lifetime that unfortunately has been affected during this COVID pandemic. So why don't you tell us about how COVID put a hold on your plans?
Yeah. So last March, about a year ago, I was starting as Lydia Hillard in Broadway's Mrs. Doubtfire. If you didn't know that was a new musical, it is. So a lot of people didn't know about it, obviously because we hadn't even opened yet. But it was just the thrill of a lifetime. It's everything that anyone could ever imagine and more, especially it being my first principal, insane for me to say, role on Broadway. And it like Mary Magdalene, I needed Lydia at that time. And I needed a push. I needed that sense of discovery. And I discovered a lot about myself playing this role. And I love to learn. I love to learn. I always did. And I always will. I love learning from different actors. I love learning different techniques. And I'm open to every opportunity that comes my way. And I get to work with Jerry Zaks, who is an iconic human being, and he is a 4-time Tony Award-winning director and a comedy genius. And he has taught me so much and will teach me so much more for the rest of my life, because I know he's going to stay in my life forever. And I have learned a plethora of things from him. Rob McClure is just a master of comedy. And I've learned so much from him and Jen Gambitis, who plays my mom, and Brad Oscar, who is a Tony Award winner. It's crazy for me to think that at such a young age, I get to work with these people. And it's weird and it's insane. But I'm so lucky and I'm so honored that I get to. And I can't wait to go back, and when we can and when it is safe, to be with all of them and to give them the biggest hug in the whole wide world. But we were put on shutdown when
I would say very early in your previews. Right?
very early. We opened on March 9th, and on March 12th we were told, that's it, everybody go home. And I will say that I was definitely the most affected at first by it, because I was living in my first apartment alone for the first time. I was finally living this life that I had always wanted to. And then I wasn't paying attention to the news, which is dumb of me, but I wasn't. I was focusing on what I had to do at that moment. And my mom was like, please wash your hands, please wash your hands, please wash your hands. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine. But totally wasn't expecting a virus to shut our show. Totally was not. And it hit me very, very hard. And for like 2-3 weeks, I just wasn't talking to anybody. And I was just, because that moment when I was getting phone calls and texts from people every 5 seconds on March 12th, I will never forget it. And I just broke down on the dressing room floor and sobbed, because I was like, this isn't it. Like, this isn't over yet. We haven't even started. But it was really, really hard for me to grasp. And it took me about 3 weeks to like realize I keep saying it, this whole year has been just one whole big fever dream, and we haven't woken up yet. I'm convinced.
In those early days, was there a thought of how long it might have lasted? Was it, in a few weeks, in a few months, we'll be back, or was it still all open-ended even at the beginning?
Yeah, well, Kevin, our producer, he said he called a meeting a couple days before, I want to say our second preview, called a meeting. The league had spoken. We're not going to shut down. Everything's going to be fine. Okay, great. So then a couple days later, then we see the article that came out, and Kevin was at that meeting at the league. So I was like, oh, but we haven't heard anything from Kevin yet. So maybe the media is lying. I was like, they're lying. It's not true. It's not true. Kevin's not here. Then he shows up and says, okay, everybody get in. And we're all there, a cast, crew, creative, everybody who works in that theater. And he said, okay, everybody get your things, leave your stuff here, because we're going to be back here in 4 weeks. And that's it. We'll be back here in 4. So every time they keep extending the shutdown, I will keep saying I'm going back to work on April 12th. I'm going back to work until they tell me I'm not going back to work. But I'm going back to work on April 12th. I'm always keeping myself prepared, trying not to be as delusional as people might say I am, but I'm trying to keep myself optimistic, because you never know. One day there could be a miracle and they say, you're going back to work tomorrow, and I'll have to remember all of my choreography and my scenes and my harmonies.
Well, you're a fast learner, I'll give you that. So that shouldn't be a problem for you. And we seem to be turning the tide. So hopefully you will be back to work sooner than later.
Yeah, we will.
I remember a picture you posted of you in front of the theater with yourself on the advertisements for the show. And again, that's just another first for you, seeing your name in that billing status and then on the advertisement. What was that like?
it was weird. It was everything I feel like in my life is so weird, especially in the past 2 years since I've gotten year and a half since I've gotten Doubtfire. Um, especially seeing my face. I mean, not even just my face. It's my whole body on a window twice, and for all of New York to see. It's weird. It's so weird. Like usually, like when I was little, I looked at that's what I admire. That's who I admired. I admired those. My first Broadway show I ever saw was Beauty and the Beast, and I went to see Christy Carlson Romano as Belle. And I remember seeing her picture on the side of the Lent Fontaine, ironically the same theater I made my Broadway debut in at Christmas Story. But I remember seeing her face and knowing that like these were like celebrities. And now to see my entire body up on that window, it's just the weirdest thing.
And I'm sure that there is another little girl that's walking past that thinking the same scene you though. So I know that probably gives you some pride.
It's so weird. I love it. It's amazing. It's really great.
So I've saved this question for the end because this will determine whether or not I cut the feed or we keep going. But the Tonys or the Minties, what was a better moment for you?
Oh gosh. Well, they're both so different.
You didn't get to speak at the Tonys.
I didn't get to speak at the Tonys.
Right, so
no.
we got one up on that.
I didn't get to speak. And I also didn't get to present. But I did get to perform with Neil Patrick Harris.
You were on national television.
I was on national television.
So how about we just call it a draw and end it at that?
Call it a draw. Make it even.
Annalise, I cannot thank you enough for joining us tonight, to be as successful as you've been and still just to have just such a wonderful personality and such humility. I hope that, and I know you'll never change, but I hope everyone could just stay as humble as you with their successes. So I thank you for all you've done for the Minties and for our Staten Island theater community. And I look forward to seeing all that you do and knowing that you played a small part in our organization for the last 10 years. So
thank you.
I thank you very much, Annalise. And I thank you all for joining us this week on Front Row Conversations. We'll be back next week with a new guest. Until then, as always, meet me at the Minties. Good night, everybody.